All right, so the next prediction, it dovetails a little bit into this because I just mentioned
Mhm.
sensors, but the Internet of Things is really a trend that, again, picking up steam. It's not one that maybe I think I even picked up on this last year as well with the sensors, but it seems to be now we're going um, fast enough that people are in some ways maybe pulling a little bit on the brake and saying, let's slow down just a little bit. Do we have the infrastructure in place? Do we have the security in place? Do we have the standards in place? Am I going to go down a path and wire my house or wireless my house with all these technologies and sensors and then find out that I've made the
The
beta
HD
choice?
DVD.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
HD. I was going to say beta versus you're in a different era than
Yeah,
me, right?
I thought
But
I was gonna win, but no,
yeah,
Blu-ray,
no.
Blu-ray won.
In the old
So
days, it
yeah,
was beta versus VHS. Now it's HD DVD versus Blu-ray. I'm sure there's a lot of these things that are out there. I mean, even just the Apple Android ecosystem. We
yeah.
see these two ecosystems
Hmm.
battling it out, and they left poor BlackBerry on the side of the road, right? I mean, that's what you're battling with now with some of these IoT
Hmm.
standards, and people want to know that the infrastructure is reliable, that it's safe. This is your home you're talking about. This
Yeah.
is your telecommunications, your connectivity, your security, your physical security, not just your cyber security, but this could be the sensor that's on your front door that's keeping the
Well,
bad guys.
it literally was. It was the Ring doorbell.
That's right.
Had a issue where people would come by, undo the doorbell itself, and turn and reset the router or reset the unit, and then that would turn it into a dumb web server, so you could reconnect, and it would tell you, hey, here's your password. So
Wow. I hadn't heard that one.
well, they found it, and they patched it within 2 weeks of the researchers finding it and reporting it. So that's an example of somebody that is very actively updating their
Right.
and as we move more towards standards like you mentioned and interoperability, that's going to be the key right there to keep those. If there's we find a bug, then you can just wipe it out as soon as possible and get it patched.
Yeah, so I think this prediction is not super specific here, but my point with making it in the blog post was really that the industry is picking up speed, and with that, it's trying to bring more and more customers and users onto these IoT platforms. When I say IoT, I hope that everybody understands that, but I don't necessarily think it's that pervasive. It's an industry kind of
Mm-hmm.
acronym, but Internet of Things is just the idea that we're putting more devices onto the internet than ever before. In my home, for example, I took a little inventory. I mean, every TV has a Wi-Fi connection now.
Mm-hmm.
Every I have some switches now where I want to control lamps and lights and things
Right.
like
Right.
that. Those are now connected back to a hub. You've got light bulbs with like the Philips Hue
Right.
that are connected to a hub that's connected to the internet. People have I have a couple drones at home. The drones are connected to tablets that are connected to the internet. I mean, literally everything in our lives at home and even here at work are starting to require some sort of internet connection.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the term Internet of Things came from. It wasn't just people on the internet behind a computer anymore. It
Mm-hmm.
was devices,
Right.
and those devices are talking to one another without human interaction. And that's really where the data challenge that we talked about in the last prediction
Mm-hmm.
come from. All of these devices are spewing data, they're storing their data, and the hope from the consumer is that you're being good stewards of my data. You're storing it securely. You're not going to share it with people that I don't want you to share it with. So the privacy becomes a concern. That it's reliable enough that, like, one of the other problems with IoT is, what if the internet goes out? What if your broadband connection goes down? Is my house now out of order? I mean, can I not get into the house anymore? Can I not turn on the oven or the TV? Does my universal remote control stop working because it's not got the cloud connection
Mm-hmm.
anymore? All of those things are very real concerns, and they're things that the sophisticated user of these technologies is probably aware of and probably just said, I'm okay with it.
Right.
But now you're talking about the next wave of adopters. The early adopter is willing to take some of the pain, but the next wave of adopters, I saw it at CES that Samsung, the massive Korean television maker, they're putting a product that they call what is it, smart I'm gonna have to look on my phone. Smart things.
Yeah.
Smart things. You guys know smart things? It's a hub
Mm-hmm.
for your IoT world. All your switches, all your lights can talk to smart things. They're going to embed a smart things hub into almost every new of a certain range, certain new Samsung TVs,
Yeah.
and that's going to put IoT kind of a, at least a placeholder for IoT into many more
Like a
homes.
command center on the
Yeah, it's
TV
like
there, and
it's
yeah,
the base station
very
for all
nice.
of those things. And so without knowing it, many consumers are going to get a smart things hub in their
Hmm.
home, um, without having to make that choice, without having to
Right.
go down to Best Buy and buy the starter kit.
Hmm.
They're going to have one sort of show up with the TV, which is connected to the Wi-Fi, which is connected to the internet 24 hours a day. And again, that consumer now is more of a mainstream consumer, not the early adopter crowd that knows all this stuff, but the one that says, look, I'm going to configure this, honey, and show you how I can turn on the light bulbs. And then he kind of sets it up and he forgets about it.
Yeah.
And that's a risk. It's a challenge to educate that consumer rapidly enough to have them understand what that means to them. And now they've got not just one device, but they've got a number of them, and they may not talk to one another. And now you're in the business of sort of really managing all of that. Now, I'm a big proponent of this. I love this technology. I've got my house, Wi-Fi to the hilt and all these devices. But at the same time, I recognize that we do need some standards. Google's working on some.
Right.
Google acquired Nest. I don't know if it's last year or the year before, but Nest is a big part of their IoT. That's their entry point into the home. The Nest thermostat, and then the
drop cam, yeah.
the drop cam, which became the Nest camera.
Mm-hmm.
That is now another piece of that puzzle. And Apple's going to be competing for that same territory with the Apple Home Kit,
yeah,
the Health Kit for your biometrics and your your medical devices and whatnot. Those are really battles for the territory around the standards and the integration and the interoperability of these devices.
Well, then there are people who have tried to be the connective tissue. So there's the if this then that, which is a recipe creator where you can integrate these different things. There's all sorts of really interesting solutions that people have come up with where you mentioned Hue a little bit earlier, the Philips lighting tools. Well, you can connect your geographic location through something like Foursquare or some of these other apps. If I check in at work, it'll flash the lights at home to let the family know I made it safe, or whatever the case may be.
I saw a really practical one is, Nest also has, and I failed to mention the smoke detectors.
Yeah.
So the smoke detectors can trigger to turn off the thermostat so that you're not blowing smoke around the house. They can also trigger the Nest through something like IFTTT to basically flash the lights in conjunction with those thermostats. So you get like a red flashing light in your bedroom. You've got the noise going off. You've got the air conditioner shutting down. All of that is automation, and
Carbon
that
monoxide too.
Yeah, so very, very powerful stuff. I mean, I think it's one of those things where the interoperability of these devices is going to be the big opportunity for these companies to make it easy, make it simple, make it safe, and make it